welcome, friends, to the original teachings of Paramahansa Yogananda. My name is Nayaswami Hriman, and I'd like to talk to you a little bit more about intuition. I've been studying some of the original written lessons of Yogananda on this subject, and in a previous broadcast before this one, I talked to you about one of his first lessons. But now this is lesson 2 from a separate course that he wrote. This is the Advanced Super Cosmic Science course that he wrote. I don't have a date on the writing, and I'm assuming it was in the 20s or early 30s. And so it has the same title as that earlier lesson that I mentioned to you. It's called not the same title, but the prior title was How to Develop Intuition Consciously. And the title for Lesson 2 in the Advanced Super Cosmic Science course is How to Develop Creative Intuition. And so he makes some different points than previously that I thought you would be appreciative of hearing. And he opens up with a very interesting analogy. Just as there are several windows in a house, so there are 5 windows in the outer physical senses and 3 inner windows of consciousness fitted into the house of life, through which the soul contacts the outer world. Well, we know what the 5 senses are. The inner windows of consciousness would be feeling, reason, and intuition. Now, if the windows in a house are frosted, visibility becomes poor. In the same way, if the sense and mind windows are befogged with ignorance and various weaknesses, infirmities in other words, human understanding becomes clouded. He goes on to talk about how most people in our culture and at this time in history imagine that knowledge is gained through the study of books and attending schools. And that's perfectly fine. You can't argue with that, but it's rather limited, as anybody knows who's gone through 16 years of education. You come out, in effect, not knowing a darn thing. Most Western professors think that education lies in pumping ideas into the brains of students, facts and so forth. And nothing wrong with facts, but it's, knowledge is not the same thing as wisdom. And somebody who has intuition, which is the source of wisdom, can step into a business setting and make a success, can step into a personal crisis and see their way forward. So wisdom is far greater of value than knowledge. Knowledge, as we often say, can be misused, can't it? So, he says many books and courses of study are available in school, but nothing is taught about concentration and the development of the 6th sense of intuition. And so leaving college, you go out, as he puts it, with unassimilated information and tries this or that job, and may take years for this person to find hit their stride and find their own vocation in life, okay? Or find his spiritual path. I see this all the time. People spend years searching and finally come up and find what is really right for them. Same thing with a life companion. How many frogs does one need to kiss? Okay. And so in order to live a successful life, whether that be spiritual or in human terms or in material terms, in business and career and so forth, we need to develop our intuition. But why I wanted to continue the subject is what makes it interesting to me is that he says to start with your 5 senses. He says, in order to live right and be successful, one must develop the power of the 5 senses, touch, smell, hearing, sight, and taste, by stimulating them with concentration. So, for example, let's say you have an interest in cooking. You would want to develop and refine your palate so that you can taste different spices and so forth. I think of people who taste like coffee or wine tasters. They have to really develop their sense of smell and taste in order to refine and understand what's really quality cooking and so forth. He uses this interesting example. I've always liked this one. If eagles from a high point in the sky can see a small rabbit, and a dog can smell his prey from a great distance and track it down, then surely we, humans, can develop the power of the senses by concentration. And see, what he's saying is that the key to intuition is concentration. Now, concentration, he hasn't said it yet here, but according to the other lesson I gave in a prior broadcast, one of the keys to developing intuition is calmness. And calmness and concentration are like the two sides of a coin. You can't concentrate on a single item unless you're calm. And concentration induces calmness, but calmness in turn enhances concentration. So think of concentration in terms of calmness, because otherwise the term concentration might bring up in your subconscious tension. Instead, if you're, let's say, think of some crisis situation and you need to know if that's smoke or whether that's dust or, I can't think of something more than that, but you need to really focus. Maybe it's dark and you need to see something or, so I'm thinking of some dangerous situation when like you hear that bump in the night, okay, you're lying in your bed, maybe you're home alone at night and boom, something hits like the window or the wall and, and you're still awake, let's say, and you're all ears. What other sounds? You see, that's the kind of focused concentration of attention that, in a dangerous situation, you might be tense, so maybe my example isn't perfect, but at least you're focused. And so, using concentration. Another technique that I don't believe he talks about here, but it's a time-honored one, which you can test yourself by walking into a room and seeing if you can notice every little thing and where it is, and then step out of the room, perhaps close your eyes, and recreate the room in your mind's eye. I think of Sherlock Holmes, who was said to have the ability to notice every little thing. And by virtue of his ability to notice every little thing, particularly about a person, he could tell what their occupation was. At least that was the case in author Conan Doyle's books. So concentration. And concentration meaning applied to the five senses. That's the point I'm trying to make. I smell something. What is it I smell? Where is it coming from? I hear a noise. What is that noise? In other words, really use your senses. Pay attention to your senses. Don't just abuse them by taking in whatever data happens to come through them and use it or lose it, as it were. Then he goes on a little bit more. Let's see, let me just check, because he has some other things here. Okay, I wanted to reread this because it wasn't clear to me. He said, those persons who seek any kind of success, no matter what it is, should first, for several months, practice the following method. When you feel that your intuition is well developed, sit and be calm and feel that the power of intuition immediately before you desire to solve any important business, social, or spiritual question. So, what that means is when you go to solve a problem, be quiet, be still, internalize, and then feel. You see, intuition comes to us primarily, or at least often, through the sense of feeling. I don't mean emotions, but you can, like ever, you think of somebody's name and you can't remember the name. Oh, it's right on the tip of my tongue. Okay, so you feel that. Okay, I think I'm going to end there, and I'll continue on in other broadcasts. So let's develop the 5 senses. Develop concentration on them when you're using them, when you're looking. Really notice things with your eyes. Listen and notice sounds with your ears. Those are the 2 most important senses that are most frequently used senses, and also most important. Okay, talk to you soon, and we'll continue on the subject of intuition.